Raise your hand if you have ever made the most beautiful plan for the year, only to find yourself in the exact same spot 12 months later where none of it's been accomplished and you're wondering where the time went. Now, here's the thing. You're not failing at planning because you're not disciplined enough or because life is too crazy. You're failing because you're likely making one massive mistake that almost everyone makes when they sit down to plan. Now, when most people think about planning, where do you instantly start thinking about? Like, think about the timeline, right? We're looking forward, we're creating plans for the future. What do I want to accomplish? What are my goals? Where do I want to be by X date? What's on my list that I'm trying to get done? And of course, that seems logical. We can't undo the past, right? So when we're planning, we're thinking about the future. Planning is all about the future. But here's what happens when you skip straight to forward thinking, meaning when you sit down to plan, you're instantly looking ahead. First, you likely end up repeating really inefficient systems that haven't been working in the past, but it's what you've always done. And I'm going to give you a really concrete example of this here in just a few minutes. Or you end up creating plans based on like fantasy you, what you wish could happen, instead of reality you. Like, truly, what stage of life are you in right now? You also miss out on the opportunity when we just go straight to forward planning to celebrate and reflect on things that went really, really well. And so all we're focusing on is what hasn't happened instead of taking a few minutes to acknowledge everything that has. And then we just set ourselves up for this very familiar cycle of, I've got this great plan. And then at the end of the plan, we feel like failures because things didn't go very well. And this is true at any level of planning, right? Whether you're planning for your week, for your month, for the year. Now, here is the massive mistake that just about everyone makes unless you've been taught otherwise. You are planning for the future without taking time to reflect and look at the past. All right. So think about it this way. If we don't examine our history, if we don't examine how we've been planning, what's been working, what's not, how did things get executed, etc., we will continue to repeat ourselves, right? We've all heard this saying, like, if we don't look at history, we are destined to repeat ourselves. And when it comes to our planning life, it means that we can end up continually making the same mistakes over and over again. And these mistakes often look like overbooking, underestimating, having this dream of how much free time you have versus how much time you actually have, right? So here's what starts to happen when we start our planning with looking back before we start planning for the future. Two amazing things happen. First, we get to identify what's already working, what's really, really good, so that we make sure we are prioritizing that and leaning in on it so that we are repeating the things that are serving us well. I mean, a tiny example, maybe you reflect back on the last week, even if it's just a week. And this was the week that you're like, you know what? I'm going to start taking a 15-minute walk every day at lunch to get some fresh air, clear my head. And if you're reflecting back, you might be like, wow, I loved that. That was a game changer for me. And knowing that now when you're planning for your next week, month, year, etc., you're already reminding yourself, I'm prioritizing this. If you didn't, if you tried the plan, walking for a week and then you're sitting down to plan for the next week, you're like, oh man, this is a busy week. You're likely going to plan right over that window and not repeat the stuff that's working really well for you. Now, the second thing that happens is that we get to start identifying patterns, activities, etc., that aren't serving us, right? Maybe we start to realize, oh, I consistently overbook myself this time of year every year, right? Or we get to start identifying like, okay, this continues to be hard for me, but I've never really sat down and analyzed why to figure out what I need to change. And this is why in all 4 levels of planning that I teach a weekly planning process, a monthly planning, a quarterly planning, and an annual planning process. And in all 4 of these levels, the first thing we do before we start creating our plan is we look back. And when I teach weekly and monthly planning, and I actually have it built into the planner that I use, the first step that we do, I call it your weekly success tracker or your monthly success tracker. What are we celebrating? What worked really well? And then we also go through a reflection process to help identify, what do I want to change? How do I want to see things differently? Now, I'm going to give you what is going to sound like the silliest example, but I guarantee you, you likely are doing something like this in your life. I got to a point once when I was doing a reflection back, and it was, many weeks in a row where I was just noticing Mondays weren't going well. There was just a lot. I always felt a little bit, tapped out, tired, etc. And one of the things that I always did on Monday was it was the day that I would change all the linens in our house. I'd strip all the beds, wash them, get fresh linens on. And it took a minute. I'd been doing this for years. And Mondays were really kind of hectic days. And so I stopped to reflect on it, and I was like, "Why am I doing this?" Well, when I really sat down and thought about it, it's because growing up, for as long as I could remember, that was what happened in our house. On Mondays, my sisters and I did not make our beds. We would strip the sheets, and my mom would wash all of our linens on Mondays. I grew up with every Monday was sheet washing day. And I carried that into my adult life because that's just what we always did. It was a habit. And I never took the time to reflect on, is that a good habit or pattern for me? And guess what? It's not. I don't do that on Mondays anymore, right? If I'm just forward thinking, it's like, well, this is what we've always done. I'm going to plan for it again. It's Monday, right? It's sheet washing day, instead of going, hey, this is not actually a good day for that. Now, I know that, is a very micro example, but this reflection process is so important that this is actually the exercise that all of the women that are coming to attend my annual planning workshop called Planapalooza. It's going down live October 15th and 16th. This is the very first place that we start because we start to uncover patterns at a larger scale. For example, for the last several years, I have learned through this reflection process that May is an absolutely nutso time of year for me. May is not the year where I want to be doubling down on a new project or hitting some big milestone or goal, because my reality is that that's a month that's going to be full of lots of other things. And so, because I know that, I'm able to create plans that are in alignment with the realities of my life. Right. So, this is why before we even start thinking about the goals and things that we want to do in 2026, I'm going to be guiding everybody through a reflection process about 2025. All right. And so if you have not grabbed your ticket yet for Planapalooza, make sure you head over to megansumrell.com/plan. You can grab your ticket and join me live, or you can watch the replays. All right. If you skip the reflection process when you are sitting down to plan, especially with annual planning, you are setting yourself up to likely be in the exact same spot that you're going to find yourself at the end of 2025. And that's what we want to avoid, right? We want to set you up for success, to align your priorities with your reality, but also making sure that we are protecting the time that you need for yourself. So if you're starting to set forth some new plan, here's what I want you to do right now. You can ask yourself 2 very simple questions to get this process going. Question number 1 is this: what worked really well last year that I want to keep doing? Right? Think back over habits, routines, lifestyle stuff, things at work, things at home, etc. What's been working really well that you're like, yes, please, I want to make sure I'm bringing that in to this next year? And then the second one is, what patterns, systems, events, etc., are happening that actually aren't serving me anymore? right? Looking back, were there things I'm like, that was really stressful. That was really hard. Man, did I get overwhelmed? Or, I almost dread this day of the week or this time of the year because I know what's coming, right? Those are the things that we want to look for so that then during Planapalooza, we talk about what changes do we put in place so that we don't just keep repeating the same thing. For years, I kept repeating the Monday linen cycle. I could have saved myself so much headache by stopping that so much sooner. So, if you want to walk through a very transformational annual planning system with me, make sure you head to megansumrell.com/plan and grab your ticket to Planapalooza today.